welcome to this special episode of Best Media Info. I am Akanksha Srivastava, your host and editor at Best Media Info. Today we have with us Rohit Ohri. Hi, sir.
Hi, Akanksha, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Very good.
Thank you for taking out time for this interview.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Akanksha.
Same here, sir. So he recently retired from his role at FCB after 8 remarkable years. Although he's stepping back from the daily grind, he's promised to continue consulting and helping his peers in the industry, but not on a full-time basis. So in this interview, we'll delve into his career-defining moments, his perspective on the current state of industry, and of course, some of his signature wisdom. So let's go ahead with this interview, sir.
Absolutely. Go ahead, shoot.
Sure. So, reflecting on your extensive journey in advertising, what have been the most profound lessons you've learned on both personal and professional fronts? And could you share any memorable experience with us?
I've had a career, I'm quite honestly, when I look back today, I'm really, really grateful for the enormous amount of success that I've seen over my three, career moves in a way, right? So my 22 years at J. Walter Thompson, right? So that was a very defining part of my life. It shaped me as an advertising person, and then from JWT, which was the large, university of advertising, a juggernaut of an agency, I moved to Dentsu really to redefine what the agency would actually mean and stand for in India, right? So that was perhaps that phase was in my mind a huge learning experience, which was telescoped into the 6 years that I was there. I think I learned a lot in terms of managing, different types of challenges that come up, right? So whether it is, about defining the agency, making it credible as a creative agency for clients, and really looking at what next for the agency in terms of, if we were to build the agency's credibility, then how could we accelerate that reputation build? And I led the acquisition of Taproot and Web Chutney, right? These were the two big defining acquisitions for Dentsu, which kind of shaped what it is still, right? So Web Chutney is still a powerful brand and retained by Dentsu. And I think what I'm also happy about is, some of the people that I'd hired at when I was in Dentsu are today leading the agency and are doing a fantastic job with it. So, to me, the measure of a leader is not just how good the agency was when the leader was in the agency, but how good the agency still is, built on the foundations that we created and set, right? So I think that was a hugely satisfying learning experience for me. And then FCB was a dream run, quite honestly. I mean, it exceeded my wildest imagination and dreams. I couldn't imagine that we would be the best performing agency at Cannes. We would be Adweek's International Agency of the Year, and the number of awards we won. Actually, on one side, I think the other thing that really was motivating was also the number of new clients that we got on board, right? So FCB had huge client relationships, very, very storied agency, great talent in the agency, and phenomenal relationship with clients. Our relationship with clients like Amul, with Nerolac, with ITC, spanned over 30 plus years, 60 years relationship with Zodiac, with Tata Motors, and with a host of other clients. I think that really was a fantastic, taking something which was well set to the next level. the way I look at myself is I look at myself as largely a builder, right? So whether it is about building on existing success at like in JWT, or building something new like in Dentsu, or building for a new future, right? Building for tomorrow at FCB. That I think is something that I find enormously satisfying. I think I find it's a great sense of achievement. Also, if you ask me what is that one thing that I I've really learned in my years in advertising. I think, the thing about advertising is we keep talking about it, that it's a people's business, right? So everybody says people's business, but I don't know how many people understand that it is a people's business, right? So I think apart from these three agencies that I worked in, and I think I've had a huge contribution in the success of these agencies, I think I'm also truly proud of the fact that there are many people in the advertising industry that I've helped, you know, each one of them maximize their potential.
If you could name two, three people who have helped shape your career.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But before that, I just wanted to share something with you. I think you'd be, perhaps people watching this would be interested in it. When I was in JWT, my team, and I used to head up brand Pepsi, or actually all PepsiCo brands at that particular point in time. And they used to call me behind my back, and I never knew about this. I only overheard it some years later. They used to call me Papa. Right now, I was in my 40s at that time, and these were like big men, right, calling me Papa. I was like, I didn't know whether it was a compliment or it was an insult or what was it. I grappled with it for some time. I hated it, right? So, but that label stuck, unfortunately, And in retrospect, now when I look back and I think about it, I think it was a metaphor, right? It was a metaphor for something. I mean, the nomenclature was Papa. It was not age defining, but it was really about the emotional aspect of having a father figure in the like a father figure in the agency, who always had your back, who always made sure that you had the best opportunities, right? So that I think I realized a few years later. I think in the beginning I was still very self-conscious about my age, and I didn't want to be, oh my God, I can't be Papa to these old men also. So, but that was an interesting aspect of my life, and that's a label a lot of people still use for me many years. Right. So that was one. But your question was more pointedly about one or two people who really shaped my career. I think the first person I'd really like to talk about is Mr. Ram Ray. He was. I spent 1 year as a management trainee in response advertising in Calcutta, which Mr. Ray was the managing director of. And I think in that 1 year, I learned so much about advertising, because I came in from an accounting background. I didn't have much knowledge, and I actually was interviewing for a finance job, right? And he met me, and he told me, he said, I think you'd be very good in advertising. You will go very far. And mind you, this was somebody who was new to the business. I didn't even know what advertising was in its entirety, but he just spoke to me. And, the amazing part is, just before he passed, he came to listen to my talk at the Bengal Chamber in Calcutta. And I was so touched by it, because he had stopped going out much, but he came for that. And I know wherever he is now, he'd be really proud of the path of my career. The other person actually is my client, a client called Vibha Rishi. She was the marketing head of Pepsi. And I think she really, really showed me the power of partnership, right? What does it mean? I've heard so many clients give lip service to, oh, these are my agency partners. You throw it and bandy it around today. These are my agency vendors, actually, what you mean, not partners, right? So she truly understood what the meaning of partnership was. What did it mean to stand by the agency? What did it mean to actually, uh, you know, motivate and inspire the agency? Because for her, we used to actually work. I remember the years that I worked on Pepsi. It was like as if I was in marketing. My kids actually didn't know that I worked in JWT. They thought I worked in Pepsi, right? So, and I had a Pepsi employee card, right? So I could access because I used to go so often for meetings that Vibha gave me a employee card, right? So it's these things that actually really create a sense of one team, right?
Do
And
you find such client agency relationships these days?
you know to a certain extent, I do find, I mean, what I've seen with us, at FCB, our relationship with Amul is an amazing relationship. The client has so much of faith, so much of trust in FCB Ulka. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's a delight. And Jain Bhai, who's the MD now, is truly a wonderful, wonderful leader. And he's very inspiring, and he's very, very encouraging of the agency. For him, Ulka is part of Amul.
But in this journey, did you also make enemies?
I'm sure there must be people who don't like me. I'm sure there are people that would be, but I don't think anybody would viciously tear me apart on my capability and my leadership. I mean, they may have disagreements about some of the things I've done, etc., etc. But I think overall, I'd be surprised if people said, uh, otherwise. Perhaps.
So moving ahead with this conversation, which is that one positive aspect of the current advertising ecosystem that keeps you hopeful about it, and one thing that you wish you could change?
So the way I look at it, I think the one big challenge for advertising industry is going to be the remuneration model of the agencies, because I think over a period of time, and this is something that we've been talking about in the industry a lot, saying that how do we charge for pitching for brands? Are we fairly compensated for work that is done? Are our contracts fair? So I think the whole thing is, this is the foundational piece, right? If the agency is not making enough revenue, it is not able to invest in talent, in processes, in new technologies, in finding new things to do for clients. So I think the important piece is this seems to be a bit of an eroding pipeline here. When you look at the revenue that agencies are able to earn today, because this fragmentation is bringing in a lot more people into the mix. So everybody is biting a bit of the big pie, and what the agencies are actually getting oftentimes is not commensurate with the kind of effort they're putting. So to my mind, if there was a way to change that, and I think this now the new generation of leaders really need to focus on that and come to a voice, as an agency industry, as an advertising agency industry, to come together to be a voice on how we need to be compensated, right?
So, but what is that one thing that keeps you hopeful about the advertising industry's future in India?
And the the one thing that I really look at, and I think, when you look at the kind of growth that India is seeing, the kind of growth in consumerism, right? So I think the we have a huge positive momentum, and so there has to be a lot more competition, advertising. It is just there. It will happen, and I think I'm excited to see where India actually moves in this next phase. The next 10 years are going to be defining 10 years for the country. And I think it's a really exciting time, perhaps the best time to be in advertising in India.
Mhm. Okay. So in the beginning of the interview, you spoke about your career at WPP, IPG, and Denso, and how each ad network defined your career and what role you played there. I have a question regarding that. That having worked with WPP and primarily JWT, then Denso, then IPG, what are your views on the strength and weaknesses of these advertising networks in the Indian market, and how do they differ in terms of their approach and work culture? And when you move from one network to the other and the other, how different did you find their style of working?
So, the interesting thing actually, Akanksha, is that when I quit JWT, I was managing partner of uh, the Delhi office, right? I wasn't CEO of the agency, right? So very often the CEOs of the agency have the best visibility about how um, the agency and the dynamics with the holding company, right? So that I never really directly experienced, but yes, one of the things I saw about WPP was hyper control, right? So it is a hyper control environment, right? So whether you are performing to your peak or you're performing at low grade, you're not meeting your numbers, everybody feels the heat and pressure. It's not that, just because when I was running Delhi office, it was the most profitable office of JWT anywhere in the world, right? So, but we still face pressure of, head count, improve the margin even further. So if the the calf is fat, it is even made fatter for the feast, right? So it's not that you realize that, okay, we this is a it's performing at optimum. Let's keep encouraging and going. So that I felt, that hyper control was something I found quite stifling in WPP, even at my level. The the time I spent in Dentsu was absolutely amazing because I got from a hyper control environment, I went into a complete like freedom place, right? I couldn't believe that, it at the end of it, uh, you know, the support I got from Dentsu in Tokyo was absolutely fantastic because they had never even heard of that. Right when I went to my first board meeting in Tokyo, I presented this plan saying that, if we really are serious about transforming our creative reputation in India and we want people to take Dentsu seriously as a creative agency, we need to do a big move in India and maybe acquire a flaming torch creative agency like Taproot, right? And at that time, all networks were talking to Tapo, every single network, and they were willing to go to any lengths to get Taproot on board, right? So I had very little hope that, Aggie and Paddy would agree to partner with Dentsu. I mean, in fact, the interesting thing, Akanksha, at that time there were a lot of news articles. Everybody's saying, is it IPG? Is it Omnicom? Is it WPP? Nobody even mentioned Dentsu, in the wildest dreams, article said, "But ye kahan se aayega?" So how will this creature emerge from the depths of darkness and kind of get this fantastic brand. So, but in Tokyo, when I presented that, they asked me, Rohit-san, what is Taproot? So I said, it's a creative agency, really good creative work and all that. And I showed some of the work, and I don't know how much they understood, but they had belief, right? They said, okay, Rohit-san, if you really believe in this and you think this is, we will support you, right? And they then went the full, people think that, as a Japanese company, they take years to actually do things, right? Move in the market, but they moved like lightning speed, right? And I think eventually we won over all the other networks, and that was a really big, repositioning in the market, because suddenly everybody said, "Wow, Taproot and Dentsu together," right? That, and it as a strategy.
What did you do that they went ahead with you?
So, the best part of it was, I think, from what I know, what Aggie and Paddy have told me as to why they finally went with Dentsu, I think the fact that Dentsu approached them with a lot of humility. Dentsu approached them with this whole thing about, you will help us define what we are in India versus you will join what we are in India, right? So the big networks always are already defined, right? So this was a bit of like a white paper, clean slate, and we wanted Aggie and Paddy to actually lead our creative thinking. That's why it was Taproot Dentsu, not Dentsu Taproot, right? So that was the indication that we gave them, and I think they liked this idea and this thought that they could then partner with a larger network who had the digital capabilities, because a little later we acquired WebChat, and that gave us a big upswing in terms of bringing in the best of digital as well into the agency. So it complemented each other. Taproot had great the big idea thing, but we could, with bringing Dentsu in, take that big idea to every single consumer touch point, right? So that then worked as a beautiful partnership for many years.
But sad, no? So it's irony of time that the brand Taproot doesn't exist anymore, when there was a time when everybody wanted to acquire it.
I know. So quite honestly, these are things I don't understand, but I was not in the agency, so I really don't know. But, the vision I had, I think in the period that we were, I was, because I moved to Singapore to, I was made CEO of APAC for Dentsu. But while I was in India, I think we achieved the big task that we wanted to do. Many of the agency heads, I remember Arvind, he called me saying that, how did you do this? I've been wanting to do this, what did you do? You have to tell me. Come, let's have a drink. So that was like the two acquisitions were very different, but, defining for Dentsu. And finally, FCB, I think was a whole different level of working with a global network, right? So if you think about it, Dentsu was an Asia-centric network, right? Asia-Pac-centric network. So it had a lot of the cultural codes of which are very different from an American multinational agency, right? But I was actually really reticent about looking at IPG and really figuring out what I wanted to do with Dentsu. But at that time, Carter Murray was the CEO, and he is such an amazing leader, right? He met me a few times. He met me once at Cannes, and he was such a delight, and almost 10 years younger than me. Right. So it was great, because though he had a lot of respect for what I understood about the market, at the same time, he had a clear vision of what he wanted to do, how he wanted to take the agency, and Susan as well. So, I think uh, my interactions with them were really fantastic. And I found that actually FCB was a beautiful mix of the two agencies, right? So it had the network of WPP, but it didn't have the manic control, right? So I think IPG as a network truly believes in empowering the local managers, right? So country heads are empowered to run the country the way they want to run it. And, there is no draconian policing of the country heads saying that, now you have to cut people, now you have to cut this expense and that expense and travel freeze and recruitment freeze and this freeze and that freeze, so we freeze the mind only, at the end of it. But I found that very, very liberating as well in FCB. I think they truly respected the local managers, and that empowered us to do the best we could, the best work that we had. And the interesting thing is that we managed to do an acquisition, and IPG in its history in India is not an acquisitive network, right? So they acquired one network, they acquired one agency, which was Interactive Avenues many years ago, but that was acquired by Media Brands, right? So the creative agencies have not acquired any entity at all, and this was the first, digital agency, which is Kinnect, that we acquired in India. And that, I think, was another defining piece for FCB. I think the next 5 to 10 years will see the face of the agency change, because the growth engine is really going to be Kinnect. And to bring and harness and integrate that capability within the mainline agency, I think those are the next big challenges. And I'm sure Dheeraj is extremely capable and aware of this, and is doing what he can to do that.
So up to what extent should ad networks rely on inorganic growth for expansion, sir?
So the thing is that it's a mix, and I truly believe that the true measure of growth is organic, right? Why can't agencies look at their existing relationships? Because all clients are focused on growth, right? No client wants to be stagnant. As clients are growing, if you focus your attention on your existing clients, right, and their business, and make sure that they truly are well serviced, and they have the best capabilities, the new age thinking, as well as the deep understanding of what the brand is, right, at the deepest level. I think that's where, and that when you see that growth, that's really a big measure. Like in my head, the two big things that we did, in my career, I think the growth of Pepsi over what it was when I came on to the business, because I started as the head of the Pepsi business, and then I was head of the Delhi office. Pepsi grew almost 5 times in size, right? And it became the largest client of JWT in India. So that was a big, and huge growth. I used to handle only one business, right? So I could deliver that level of growth with only one client, right? So that, and testimony to the fact of this growth and the quality of the work that we had done on the business, that I then moved on to heading the agency as well. And of course, if you look at in FCB, the way we've grown with many of our clients, right? So obviously Amul is the best example of this, right? So from one brand to now handling almost 40 plus brands, it's been a fantastic journey. And the goal should be doing the best work the best for your clients, because a lot of the existing clients get ignored because you're pushing so hard on the new business.
Are there any business decisions you've made in your career that you regret?
I was thinking about that, quite honestly. I frankly don't have any decisions that I regret. The big decisions that I made, I think all my decisions, when I moved from JWT to Dentsu, everybody told me, you are out of your mind. How can you do this? You can't leave JWT and come to Dentsu. And quite honestly, in the first week that I was in Dentsu, I felt that, oh shit, I made the biggest mistake of my life. But it then changed, and how? It was a great stint, great. I really enjoyed that working there. I think it was so liberating. It was a very entrepreneurial kind of a thing, like a startup kind of a feel. So I love that. And then, of course, FCB and all that I've done here. I'm really fortunate, Kanksha, and I think back that, to have 3 agency experiences which have all worked out for me.
Okay. And some next question is slightly different, which is about the ongoing consolidations and mergers that's happening in the whole ecosystem, such as Disney Viacom merger and then integration of VML, Wondermel, and Omnicom agencies coming together. So what are your observations and thoughts on these trends?
So, this was something that Publicis did, and, from the looks of it, seems to be working for them. So it's a difficult question, primarily because what it does is, in a network, if you have multiple agencies, the thing about smashing the agencies together to solve a problem is not really the right way to look at it, right? So in many ways, I always thought that what WPP did with, merging all the agencies one by one into each other, and then hoping to, you can't fix the problem by putting 2 problems together, right? So saying that ye problem hai, ye bhi problem hai, dono ko laga do, maybe it'll get sorted. That's not the way it works, right? So you have to go to fix the problem fundamentally. So, it really is a different strategy. I think as far as WPP is concerned, because you talked about VML, I think there the strategy was really about, is JWT a bit of a fading brand? Is his reputation dying? So, or should we merge Wonderman into JWT and then see whether you can make it digitally, take the digital capabilities to the next level? I don't know what really has happened, quite honestly. But from the outside, what I see is that, it was a failed experiment, right? It failed, and then they did some more, bring YNR and VML and all that together as well. So what you do in the process, as networks, we look at our brands, right? And JWT is a brand that's been around forever. It was the oldest advertising agency in the world, and truly a great brand, right? So the whole thing is that, did it really deserve to die? Or, could that have been fixed, right? So if you can't fix it, I don't think smashing agencies together with culturally very different, capabilities-wise very different, just bringing them together, making them one entity is always the best solution. That's my opinion. Whereas a Publicis and what you talked about, Omnicom, is a whole different strategy, where they're bringing all their capabilities together, right? So it's a one network agency. So you go to a client and pitch Publicis and say that, okay, we can get you all these capabilities, we can get you all this across our different entities for you, right? So that's a whole different strategy. That's a whole different way of thinking. And we are seeing, I mean, Publicis is seeing success behind it, right? So, but I really want to see in the long term. When I talk about long term, is really when you look at the next 5 to 10 years, if individual agencies lose their identity, lose their creative culture, how will that then help a network? Because it will then be all one, right? So it will not be that, this is the LB culture, right? So this is BBH culture, etc. So those are different entities within Publicis. But if it all merges and becomes one whole, then you're one agency again, right? So that's the challenge that I think most of these, even Omnicom will have with BBDO, DDB, etc.
But what's your opinion on the platform side? I mean, with Amazon acquiring MX Player, then Star merging with Viacom 18, and there are more other such examples.
So on the platforms side, it makes sense because it kind of elevates the consumer experience, right? So by merging these, you're able to give consumers a better quality experience, a better variety, and it's a bigger muscle. So platforms are very different from the creative agencies. I think there it makes sense.
Okay. So another aspect of this conversation is about talent. And I will not ask you this question, how to attract more talent, because again, the answers are quite similar. What everybody says. If you had something different, then please offer your answer. But do you think it's fair to compare the mindset and work ethics of today's younger generation with those of the 20, 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago? Like we always compare, हम तो ऐसे करते थे, अब के लोग तो ऐसे नहीं करते. So I'm just asking this question, and what approach should we have towards this?
This is the generation, right? Whether we like it or not, this is the generation that will lead the companies, different industries, as well as advertising over the next few years. So if we don't like it, it's too bad, right? So as far as this generation is concerned, I think they are, I mean, defined by a lot of impatience, but I think there is a good sense of purpose that they have, right? So they understand what they want to do. Increasingly, what I see is this generation is really about defining their own path, right? We used to be guided, but they can guide as well, right? So I think that it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful time. I think looking at this generation from a very senior person's point of view, we used to do it like this, and why do you not do it like this? It is never going to happen, right? This new generation, we did it very differently from the generation before us. So every generation defines the time, defines how business, how brands will be built, and we just need to accept that and move on, saying that okay, this is a new time and new generation. The idea is to build on that, right? So it's a continuum. So it is evolving and changing, and I think it's good. It's good for the industry. It's good for maybe this new generation will find solutions for which a lot of us have not found, like in terms of recruiting talent, right? In terms of remuneration and finding those bits and pieces that I think a lot of us who've come from large agency network also look at clients as true partners. Partners often don't want to push the envelope a lot in terms of saying, no, we want this money, and if you don't give us this money, we are going to not work for you, etc., etc. We often take a very long-term view, saying that okay, this client may not be able to pay us now, but let's look at a partnership view and say that okay, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, we'll be fairly compensated. I don't know whether the new generation looks at it like that, right? So they have a more right here, right now. If you can do this, let's move on. So which is right, which is wrong, I don't want to really say this is right and that is wrong. There are different ways of looking at it. I think time will tell.
Okay. Okay. So I have one concluding question, which is about how do you intend to spend your time now after quitting a full-time job?
Oh, that's a great question. So uh, I'm actually super excited about this phase because, and one of the reasons why I wore this T-shirt, if you can see these birds flying, right? It's a freedom T-shirt for me, right? So, I'm really happy. It's a great sense of uh, accomplishment. And I think I'm promised myself that I'm going to take a break, just chill. I have my daughter's wedding coming up in January. So it's a full-time project now. So the next 3, 4 months, I'm going to be focusing on that. And then maybe in Feb, I'll come to your office and chat with you again about what I'm looking at doing.
Sure, definitely. Is there something that you want to tell our audience and we haven't covered that in a conversation?
Uh, Nothing. I just feel that, from the way I'm looking at the next phase of my career, I think the one of the big things that I want to do is I definitely want to give back to the industry, and this is through I've already done some bits of this with some of the management schools in Delhi, and I'm helping them kind of shape their advertising courses, the curriculum, etc., so that it's more industry specific, more in a way job ready for most of the graduates, so that they get a good understanding of what is the real world like, what is the big challenges that they will face when they go out, and how do they tackle those challenges, and in some ways recreate the mystery and the magic of advertising, right? I went and presented to the postgraduates at IMT Ghaziabad, and the big thing there was a lot of them were looking at marketing, advertising, and I showed them some of the work that we had done in FCB and in JWT and Dentsu, etc. And they were so energized by it, right? The work energized everybody. And they said, we are so excited. A lot of the students came to me saying that we are so excited that we could do, this is the potential, right? This is what you could do. And, we want to do better than this. And that was a really something that gave me great joy, because I think that's great to have people who are excited by the business, who are excited by advertising and the power that it has. Right? Because it's truly powerful, right? It can change consumer perceptions, change societal perceptions. It can change how a nation looks at its own self or the world. So to my mind, I think that's a powerful thing, and to inspire people to do that is really something that I'm excited about. Of course, there are lots of startups who want some guidance, etc. So I'm going to take my time to think about what I want to do, because the next few years I want to do stuff that I truly enjoy, that gives me joy, not that stuff that I just have to do because I'm in a company. I mean, the way I look at it, it's going to be a company of one, right? So I will decide what truly excites me, what I want to do. Of course, I will do something, but I'm still working and figuring it out in my head, because I don't want to do something that has been done before. It needs to be something new, something truly meaningful, and something that comes out of my core capabilities, right? Not something that I'm trying to masquerade as, saying, let me try and give you some gyan on new technologies and what is happening with the young people and this, that, because there'll be 100 other people who do a better job. But my understanding of what makes and creates brands, right? Memorable, lasting over a period of time. And in today's day of, this massive, uh, you know, the whole thing about advertising is broken up into small bits, right? So it's prolific and there's so much of work happening. I don't think people really understand or realize what uh, is being told to them, quite honestly. So how do you actually look at brands in this new world and build the brands here?
Mhm. Sure, sir. Thank you so much for joining this call and spending time with me. You shared some really interesting old incidents with us. For example, that I did not know that people used to call you Papa, and I don't know if they still call you Papa or not.
Well, they still do. Yeah.
Acha, okay. Otherwise, it was a fun chat with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Akanksha. Lovely talking to you.
Same
We'll see you
here.
in your office next time.
Yes, definitely.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.